and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. This is Irreverend, Faith and Current Affairs.
Irreverend, Faith and Current Affairs with me, Jamie Franklin and Thomas Pelham. We are both of us, aren't we, Tom, priests in the Church of England, doing priestly things, and also this podcast talking about faith and current affairs. How are you today, Tom?
Really well, Jamie. Yeah, it's enjoying the autumn, crisp leaves, all that sort of stuff. I like it.
It's nice, isn't it?
It is nice.
I just tried to introduce the podcast and started sneezing.
It was really funny. Honestly, I think you should have kept it. It was great. All listeners, what happened is he did a really formal start, and then about microseconds after it finished, an enormous sneeze.
Yeah. It was good. It was good timing. It was good. It was good comic timing. I might release it as an outtake one day when we do our DVD special. That would be good. Hey Tom, it's what were you going to say? Sorry, I didn't want to.
I was going to say I'm just going to put the light on in my room because the way I'm in front of a window, it sort of like makes me look like I'm glowing with like Moses when he came down from the mountain. I'll be right back. Well,
go on.
There we go. That's better, isn't it?
Nice. That's looking a lot better. I'll do a lovely cut there, and it will sort of do a crossfade, and then suddenly you'll be in color. And on the audio, I'll just cut the dead air that we just had for a few seconds. So that's no problem.
Okay, sorry.
So Tom, let me ask you a question.
Go on.
Halloween is coming up.
Yeah.
What do you make of Halloween? Are you in favour it? Are you against it? What do you think?
Well, I'm not in favour of it. I don't know. I guess on one side, like having fairly harmless fun is fairly harmless. I don't know. On the other hand, there are obviously spiritual overtones to a lot of what's going on, and sort of following the sort of Pauline principle that really, if it isn't helpful, you should cut it out. I don't think it's helpful. I just, because on the one hand, harmless fancy dress. On the other hand, there is a sort of occult sort of takeover, isn't there?
Yes.
Devils and vampires and things like that.
Yeah. I'm sort of. Go on.
Well, I mean, I was going to say they don't really promote it so much as make them sound silly and sort of then by association make the idea that we are actually in sort of spiritual warfare. Sounds silly because people associate, devils with little kids with tridents and a red hat on. But I don't know.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same. I don't want people to think that I'm a sort of stick in the mud, but I don't really like it at all, actually. And I don't like the way people. There's a house close to here where they've put gravestones outside the front of their house and this big skeleton, and it's just like a celebration of death, really, isn't it? And darkness. And I think it's quite ugly. And it's hard to know how to speak to your children as well about it, isn't it? Because they sort of ask, I don't know what happened. I think I made a disparaging comment about it. And then they said, oh, what's blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, we don't really, as Christians, we don't really celebrate the powers of darkness and death and things like that, because we're children of the light, and we follow Christ. And it's sort of you don't want to sort of pass a self-righteous attitude onto them, but then I really dislike it, and I don't think it's a good thing.
No, I don't think it is, and I think certainly like it feels very Americanized, isn't it? Like the whole trick or treating and that sort of thing, and dressing up. It's an American festival.
But what do you do with trick or treaters though, Tom? Because even though I don't like it, I would still give them treats because I don't want to, be seen. I don't want people to think, there's that crank.
I mean, I've not been here through through Halloween, so I'm not certain we're going to get many. I haven't actually got any sweets to give them. I got a bit of a sweet tooth, so any sweets in the house tend to get eaten by me.
Okay, there's still time. There's still time.
But I don't. If I just keep the lights off the front, I doubt they'll come here. Actually, we're a little bit tucked away.
Right.
We're a little bit tucked away, and at least the front of the houses. I don't think, because in order to get to the front of the house through the sort of main entrance, you have to go down the main road and almost out of the village, and it's quite a fast road. It's very, very dark. We're a dark night village apparently, so there's no street lamps.
Right.
So
good. I like that.
It is really good. I mean, the stars are absolutely phenomenal. But it does mean that it's very dark down our drive, and it's sort of. I'd be really surprised.
You could really scare the kids, couldn't you? If they did come down.
Yeah, you could
sort of fling the door open, dressed as a devil, and scream. I mean, especially somebody of your size, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I do.
You don't know, Tom is 6'6". So
I do minister to them. I do minister to them directly, as most of them is because they go to the school. So I think it'd probably get me in trouble if I terrified them all.
You'd end up in the Daily Mail.
So yeah, I basically
rural vicar terrifies children dressed as devil. But you might be promoted to the episcopate, so for creative expressions of ministry or something.
What do they call them? They're new fresh expressions.
Fresh expressions. I'm not sure. Just terrifying children would qualify you for funding, but it might be the beginning of an idea, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen worse.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. No names mentioned. Yeah.
But basically, I just ignore it as a festival. Other than the having the All Souls Festival, which is of course the Christian remembrance of the dead and the day to remember those beloved who've passed.
Yes,
so,
and to pray for them.
We'll be doing that, and to pray for their families. Yes,
pray for them.
And of course All Saints Day, which is its.
Yeah, I'm preaching on All Saints Day this year. I've not preached on All Saints Day, I don't think, before. So I have to think about. Have you done it before? What would you think about?
I essentially having quite a low theology of sainthood. Well, no, not a low theology of sainthood, very high theology of sainthood. But I mean, the point is that all of us who are Christians are just destined to sainthood. Right. So I make that point really that the saints' example should be encouraging us to the same heights of faith.
I like
because
that.
it's attainable, because that's what Christ promises us.
That's really helpful actually. Thank you.
Tom, and I think that's a really sensible, I think, sort of quite happy sort of Protestant way of looking at saints as people whose examples point us to godly living.
I think so. I think that's really reflected if you look at the collects in the Book of Common Prayer. I think that's the sort of main theme of them, isn't it? I like that. I'll carry that into my preparation. It's a bit of a tight turnaround because it's 2 days after the Sunday, and I would say I'm preaching on Sunday, so I'm focused on that, and then I've got just 2 days.
I see. I'm just transferring all of these onto other days.
That would be the easy thing to do. But but you're in charge, Tom, and I'm not, so I have no choice. Tom, next week it's the 100th episode of Irreverend.
It feels odd, that, isn't it?
So it's been weekly episode.
So we've obviously had a few weeks off in between, haven't we? I have not done as many as you. There's been some with just you and Daniel, and etc.
And also, I might have miscounted. As I'm not entirely sure I've counted properly, but we're calling it the 100th. It's like Christmas, isn't it? It's not. Actually, it's not actually the birthday of Christ.
Well, I did see an impassioned defense of that by Gavin Ashenden once.
Really?
Anyway, yeah.
I didn't realize anyone actually said that. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, I'll take that back then. Maybe it is the 100th.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
I
just don't know.
The podcast has come on quite a bit. 2 years ago, then, wasn't it? Just about this time 2 years ago, we were entering into our second lockdown, weren't we? You and I took up our mantle.
Took up our microphone.
Took up our microphones and
courageously grasped the mic and laid down some fat. We didn't do that.
We didn't. No. We started with that fear of death episode, didn't we?
We had those 2 trial runs, didn't we? Which were a bit too angry.
Very angry. And also they were around the time of George Floyd, weren't they?
That was just after, actually. That was just after. I remember because. Oh no, maybe
No, it was.
Maybe you're right, actually. Yeah.
And it was really hard if everyone remembers to talk about that at that point in any sort of sane way, because it was just so like careers were disappearing based on it. So we thought, in the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we didn't quite pitch it right, did we? But no, I think we've done all right. Subsequently, what I was going to say, Tom, is next week, if it all goes to plan, we're going to have an interview with Pete Hitchens on the show. So that will be good. So that will be about a sort of classic, sort of 45-minute, hour-long interview with him. And also, I'm hoping to do a renewed or a new Irreverend Awards. Now, I've got an idea for this, which I wanted to float with you and also with our listeners, which was to give it a little bit of a different edge. So we did this last year, but this year, what I was thinking of doing is giving awards based on motifs that come from characters in the Bible. So just to make this a bit clearer, sorry, I feel like I'm going to sneeze again. The Lazarus Award for best comeback, John the Baptist Award for best prophetic insight, the Elijah Award for speaking truth to power,
the Zacchaeus Award for being short.
Yeah, except I suppose you could have that, couldn't you? You could, because there are plenty of short people around. So anyway, that's my idea. So I'm going to write some of these ideas down. But if anyone has an idea for a category, don't tell us the game is that we give the categories in the actual episode, and then we answer them. And it's kind of a way of doing a bit of a retrospective. So the new Irreverend Awards will be part of the bumper episode next week, which will be serious content with Pete Hitchens, and then slightly more light-hearted. Although there might be moments of levity with Peter. He is a humorous man, and we're looking forward to what he has to say. But in any case, that's what's happening next week, just so people know. One further bit of banter, Tom. Somebody emailed me this week saying, is it true that the pilgrimage site of Lourdes in France, which, as you know, Tom, is a famous Roman Catholic pilgrimage destination for people who are seeking physical healing, is it true that they require you to be double vaccinated before you enter? And I didn't find anything on Google, but then I put it out on Twitter, and it is indeed true that you must be double vaccinated plus a booster dose, in order to enter Lourdes. And you have to wear a face mask at all time. This is from their website.
This sounds really healthy.
Each director or head of service is responsible for checking his or her own pilgrims, who will be given a wristband verifying their vaccination status, valid for the length of their stay. So, Tom, no dirty, unclean, vaccinated people in the healing pilgrimage site of Lourdes. Please keep your filthy germs out, because you're not welcome.
It certainly it implies a slight lack of faith in Lord's own power, isn't it? But it's just a commercial site, isn't it? I mean, it's this is the problem with all of this these sort of pilgrimage and culty sort of thing. They're all just.
I knew I was giving you.
In the end, they get. I mean, at the beginning, people of faith definitely. Visions maybe. Miracles. I don't doubt them, but they turn into as Glastonbury did, as Canterbury did, still is, as all of the great shrines of the Roman Catholic faith are just money making devices. I'm afraid.
Yeah. So I knew I was giving you a gift there, Tom, to give you. It's like I was just handing you the baton to go on an anti pilgrimage.
No, I don't have a problem with pilgrimage. Go on a pilgrimage by all means, but
I would say let's not get into a big argument about this, but I do know somebody who believes that he was healed of leukemia at Lourdes, and he did have very serious leukemia, which it was completely clered up after he went to Lourdes. So,
I'm sure it probably can happen. I mean, faith and God can work in many ways. But
it would be sad. It would be very, very sad if people were genuinely seeking healing and they were turned away because they're not vaccinated.
Yeah, well, especially if they're seeking healing from COVID, that'd be awful, wouldn't it?
So hang on a second. So they're not vaccinated. They're seeking healing from COVID. They go to Lourdes, and the people at Lourdes say, "You should have had your vaccine." Sorry.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Funny. Yeah,
it is funny.
Anyway, so I mean,
it's very sad. It's very sad.
It's also very sad, isn't it? Yeah. Should we have something more edifying, Tom? Should we have some scripture?
Let's do it.
It's you today. So
it is. Yeah.
Should we do a prayer first, or
shall we do the Lord's Prayer? Shall we? Okay.
Yes.
Here we are. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so we're looking through Matthew still, and we're still in Matthew chapter 6.
Yeah, the Sermon on the Mount. Sermon on the Mount.
Sermon on the Mount. We didn't do the previous verses, did we? The one was about fasting.
No, we're not doing the whole thing. We're kind of just select
picking
bits.
Highlights. Okay, here we are, chapter 6, verse 19 to 24. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money.
It's interesting, the vermin thing. Is that was the King James version, was it?
No. This was actually New International Version.
Oh, was it? Oh,
yeah. Sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize. I was just wondering about the thing about vermin because I've never heard that before.
Neither had I.
Yeah, moth and rust is the.
Let's see
the word is sais apparently, which means moth. So I don't know whether the NIV is using a different. Oh no, wait, sorry, I'm looking at. Sorry, it's not. It's the rust, isn't it? No, where moth and rust. Brosis. But I thought that just meant rust.
Well, maybe it does. I don't know why. And it's certainly rust in the
eating
in the KJV.
Interesting. So they've obviously the translators of the NIV in their wisdom have decided to use vermin. But I suppose vermin can eat your treasures just as much as rust can.
Weirdly, there's no postscript to that, because normally if there's a sort of contentious word, they'll put a postscript in there saying alternative words are.
In
this particular edition, it doesn't.
I've got worm as an alternative.
Worm, vermin. I guess I get that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I mean, on the one level, there's a sort of fairly simple moral story going on here. So put your treasures where your heart, where you want your heart to be, and then and if that's on earth, then you'll be disappointed, and if that's in heaven, then that treasure will continue forever. So rather than acquiring sort of temporal wealth and power, possessions. Put all your effort into building your heavenly sort of storehouse. I think the reason being not really because having wealth in the world is bad, but because you act to protect that which you find precious, and you do that sort of spiritually as well, I think. So if you invest in God, then you're naturally inclined towards God. It makes things easier, and I think that's a lot of the sort of stuff about wealth in the New Testament does seem to corroborate this. That it's about whether it's easy to be wealthy and God fearing as well. And I think it isn't, because you'll tend to make decisions that don't prioritize God but prioritize your wealth, because that's what you have to care about in order to have it. And then that sort of famous verse 24, you can't serve both God and money, or mammon, I believe is often written as, isn't it? So there, really, it's against that warning that either you devote your life to God or you will be lost. Anything else to add? We debated for a bit, taking out that sort of middle section about the eyes, because it in some ways doesn't seem to follow. But I'm in favour of keeping it in, because obviously Matthew decided it had to be in there, and we believe that Matthew was recording truthfully, so the material he was recording has that in it.
Yes,
and I think certainly there's something about people. I think the reason it's there is because you can start to tell people how they are where they're putting their money by how they look and how they behave. I think that's sort of what it's saying.
Yeah, I think it's about attention, isn't it? That's because it follows straight away after that. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Yeah. The eye is the lamp of the body. So it's like literally where you're looking, that's the thing which is going to sort of be fed back into your system.
Yeah.
So if you're always looking for money and you're looking to gain riches, that's the thing you're going to care about. That's the thing you're going to love. That's the thing you're going to serve. But if you are looking to Christ or looking to spiritual things, then it's like an investment. It becomes the things you care about as you pursue it, you could say. So that's interesting, isn't it? Because, would you sort of naturally, I guess you might naturally think about it the other way around, you pursue something, you get it. And then, let's put it this way. You pursue something because you care about it and then you get it. Whereas I think what Christ is saying is it's as you pursue something that you care about it more. So it's actually the pursuit of it actually sort of shapes your desire.
It becomes an obsession, doesn't it? It becomes, the more you pursue something, whatever that be, the more you shape your life around it.
Yeah.
Whether that's pleasure, whether that's money, whether that's all sorts of idols, really. But if it's God, then that's an investment that's not going to decay.
Yeah. Amen. I agree. As I would, Tom. As is natural. Great. Well, let's move on to twits on Twitter for this week. So this week I've got a tweet here by Youth in Resistance at Youth in Resist. So you can follow at Youth in Resistors if you want. And Tom, as the game goes, I'm just going to share our audio. As per last week, I will simply play the audio and I'll describe to you the scene. And you can comment. You just say stop, or I'll stop it, depending on who wants to talk about it. Basically, I think this group, I'm not sure if this group actually is Youth in Resistance, but the tweet says students disrupt anti-choice event at the University of Edinburgh, which means an anti-abortion group, pro-life group. More info in thread and full video on our Instagram. Oh, there's a longer video. Oh well, this is probably right for this feature. And basically it's them filming themselves breaking into a seminar room at the University of Edinburgh and disrupting, I think it's an SPUC, so Society for Protection of Unborn Children events. So that's what's going on. And we're now going to hear the audio. So here we go. Can you hear it?
Stop this talk right now. We are disrupting this talk. We're not letting you spread your harmful rhetoric against people with uteruses. Stop this right now. We are cleaning this space.
Yeah, go ahead.
So wait, the first one is in what sense are they spreading their harmful message when they are in a room?
Yeah.
Having a private meeting, presumably. I mean,
it really does look quite civilized. They're all sitting at the desks, kind of,
I mean, it's not like they're out, on the street handing out posters. They're in a room having a meeting. So it's not exactly as if they're spreading their harmful message against people with uteruses. Now that's a bit of a giveaway there, isn't it? That's what we have on our hands here, Jamie, is some sort of trans affirming feminist, don't we?
Yes, I think she does. She repeats this thing about, sorry, my kids are outside bashing on my door with various tools. She repeats this thing about people with uteruses multiple times. Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right to pick up on that. Another thing to say about this is she's got a Scottish accent, so it's quite hard to.
I thought it was American, actually.
Well, have a listen. Just have a listen to this, and I'll pause it just after this key phrase. So just listen to this. So they approach the door.
Stop this filth right now. We are just.
Did she say stop this filth right now? I can't.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, stop with some filth
these
right
filthy
now.
People, these filthy.
We're not letting you spread your harmful rhetoric against people with uteruses. Stop this right now. We are cleaning this space.
Now there, I thought at first she said, we're cleaning this space, but she's actually saying she's claiming this space.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We're claiming this space like that, like a kind of, so I think that's a Scottish accent.
Harmful rhetoric against people with uteruses. Stop this right now. We are cleaning this space. Students are not okay with this group coming here to spread harmful rhetoric.
Okay, so I would like to stop that there. When she says students are not okay with this, there are quite a few students in that room who seem all right with it, So, I mean,
Yeah, and it's obviously something quite up with the booking system in Edinburgh. If you know, basically what you need to do to book a room is to run in with a megaphone and shout that you're claiming this space right now.
Claiming the space.
We're claiming this space right now.
Well, either that or they're really not respecting the booking system, are they?
Well, maybe they're not, Jamie, but that wouldn't be a polite way of going about this sort of thing, would it?
No, I agree.
Go on. Okay.
This video, by the way, has got a paltry 6,373 views. The one we looked at, the Just Stop Oil people had something like, what was it, 8 million or something. So this is poor by comparison. Anyway, let's carry on. So we're cleaning this space. Stop this filth right now and just run it back a few seconds.
Not okay with this group coming here to spread harmful rhetoric. Stop it.
Harmful rhetoric.
Yeah. She keeps saying she keeps saying stop it. I really like her accent. It reminds me of that. Do you know the lady who plays? I think is it Cho in the Harry Potter film? She's got a nice.
I still think
soft Scottish accent.
I still think she's.
You think it's something else?
She's American. I think she's American.
Might be.
But anyway, it's a weirdly polite way of finishing, isn't it? You know, stop it.
Yeah, well, no, there's more.
Oh, there's more.
Yeah. I was just pausing it because to make a comment, but let's carry on.
Thank you.
Now they're walking in. They're all walking in and they're filming.
This organization has been targeting and harassing people with uteruses coming out of abortion clinics.
All right. So now what they're doing is they're all walking in and they've all got signs. Most of the signs just say "My body, my choice," and quite a lot of them are wearing masks. And the students at the back of the room, they all look kind of quite amused by it. There's quite a lot of people filming what's going on. And she's saying, you know, people, you've been harassing people with uteruses coming out of abortion clinics, blah, blah, blah.
In Edinburgh for years already. And we, the students, are not okay with this.
There's a student that looks like Sinead O'Connor. I mean, really does.
And I'm guessing a lot of the people who are here sympathize with what I'm saying.
Hang on a second. I'm guessing a lot of people who aren't here.
Is that what she says at the end?
I'm guessing that a lot of people who aren't here sympathize with what I'm saying.
The people who are here sympathize with what I'm saying.
Yeah, she says a lot of people who are here can sympathize with what I'm saying. But they really don't look like they sympathise with what.
Well, presumably they're in the group already. There don't really sympathise with what she's saying.
Well, presumably, I agree. But if they're in the room wanting to hear what the people have got to say, even if they disagree with them, they still want the event to take place. So they're not. They don't agree that the event should be disrupted and cancelled.
No.
So, it's interesting. I mean, that is the end of the video, but it is kind of. Sort of
again, it's quite mild, isn't it? I'm guessing that you know it's not exactly fervent, isn't it? You know, I'm guessing that people who aren't here are
are here. It's people. I'm guessing the people who are here. So she's sort of saying, "Oh, don't be afraid. If you think that this event should be shut down, then
that you're going to
that you're attending, yeah,
that you're attending quite happily." Okay,
yeah,
but it's sort of quite incoherent again, isn't it? I mean, really, she should think up a few more strident. If I was going to say one thing to her, she needs to work on her rhetoric, not just shut down other people, because she's not really got it, is she?
Yeah, silly.
Tweet on Twitter.
But the thing about students is they're always extreme, aren't they? That's what any society in a university is always radical. So if you're a sort of radical, yeah, of course it is.
Oh, I went to university. I didn't go to a single radical society.
Did you go to any societies?
Yeah, I became a bell ringer.
Okay, but yeah. I mean, political societies. I mean, what would a radical bell ringer be? Somebody who rings bells, day and night. And
well, there were some of those.
Eat or sleep.
I think it's fair to say that the people who were involved in student politics were universally nutters.
Are you at Bristol University?
Yeah. I mean, even the conservative ones, were like parodies of conservative people.
Yeah.
Tweed and sort of
young fogies.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's like it was, but then the sort of left wing ones were they were all of all persuasions, all political parties, completely and utterly bonkers. And then, of course, we can tell this because they're the people who go on to become MPs. You look at them.
It's like they're sort of parodies of they're the sort of caricature versions of political viewpoints, aren't they? But we should say, I mean, there is a serious issue here, which is that why is it that we have this situation now where people feel that because their cause is so righteous, they can shut down even a conversation about it. Like the SBUC, if it was SBUC who were in the university, they have no right to even speak in the university. It's a worrying trend in our culture, isn't it, Tom? That we have this sort of notion that there are certain topics which just can't be discussed in public.
Yeah, it's not even a notion, is it? I mean, there's no legal force behind it. It's just people shouting louder, which is no way of having debate. Anyway, it's I hesitate to use the word snowflakes because I think it's hard to define. But I do think that these people have absolutely no idea what the real world looks like.
Yeah. But I mean, in their favor, you could say that they are actually, they've got the guts to disrupt an event. I mean, how much guts it takes, I'm not really sure, but they are like the people we watched last week, the Just Stop All the people, they're putting themselves out there, aren't they? They're just doing it in a way which is annoying.
Well, I honestly disagree that there's anything particularly courageous about what they're doing. Again, because they are, it's mass action. It's bullying, really.
Yeah, and also it's not when you've got a big megaphone, you feel really powerful, don't you? I assume. I mean, I've never done that. I've never invaded a seminar room with a megaphone, but I imagine it's quite fun.
Just do it at Cuddeston. Stop right now.
Stop this now.
Stop this now.
This is not in accord with the councils of the early church.
Or the 39 articles of the Church of England to which you will be swearing. Stop this right now. We want to stop your harmful rhetoric.
Stop your harmful theology. Crazy stuff. Did you want to say something? There's something in the news about...
So this has been in the news. The MPs have pushed through, I believe, an amendment which is going to criminalise potentially... put a buffer zone around all abortion centres, I believe, which will criminalise private prayer. And despite the valiant effort of a few MPs, it passed, who pointed out that harassment was already illegal, for example, that it could be dealt with. I don't agree with harassing people. Harassing people is always bad, but I don't think many of these vigils harassed people. In fact, I suspect most of them were very cordial. They're there to support people and hope that God might change their minds away from the grievous sin that they're about to commit, potentially. And a lot of them offer a lot of support and to that, and people turn away from abortion centres because of them. And so I can only think it's the work of the evil one to get them banned.
It's very wrong, isn't it? Very wrong.
The idea that even private quiet prayer is banned. I mean, seriously, that's thought crime, isn't it? That's literally thought crime. Yeah,
it's macabre. And another thing they do, of course, is they hand out leaflets to help women to understand the choices that they are unaware of. Yeah. Because a lot of the time when women are having abortions, it's because they're being pressured into it by family members or by the I'm trying not to use extreme language here, but by the useless fellow who is forcing the woman into it. And what people from SBUC and other organisations do is they say to the women that you have a choice and that you don't have to go through with this if you don't want to, and there is support for you available. And it's so sad that we live in a culture world and we have a political climate where this choice is you're making this choice known to women is actively discouraged to the point now of it becoming illegal in a certain place outside of abortion centres. It seems to be the case that the establishment actually wants to promote abortion as much as possible. And it's a tragic and terrible thing, terrible for women apart from anything else. I just finished reading Louise Perry's book, The Case Against the Sexual Revolution. And although Louise Perry is sadly pro-abortion, she does acknowledge the terrible harm that it does to women to quite a significant degree, actually. And she acknowledges that this is all part of a system which works for young, horny men who want to sleep with lots of women and not face the consequences. So it's part of a system that's set up for young men, and that serves them, and that for most women is actually, in its totality, something deeply unappealing. One of her central points in the book is that that women score much lower on the so-called socio-sexuality scale, which basically means that women don't want to have casual sex anywhere near as much as men do, but they feel like they're pressured into it as a result of the culture of universities and other youth-orientated environments. And I think she makes a lot of really, really good points. And I would just extend it to the abortion question as well, as she does, and make the point that abortion is a crime against women as well as the children who are destroyed as a result of the action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so sad. I mean, in some ways, funny video, but sad situation.
I was one of the things I really loved about we met in Cambridge early last spring, and the head of the Cambridge University's Society Against Abortion was there, pro-life group, pro-life group, and we gave her a standing ovation because she's so brave, and she is so brave.
It's great. It's great, wasn't it?
It's a great moment.
18-year-old girl. It's fantastic. Really, really wonderful to see a young woman of such strength and conviction and intelligence.
Faith.
And faith. Yeah, wonderful thing. Wonderful. Tom, let's talk about the big story of the week. So we basically record episodes now, 2 days later release them, and then they're completely out of date. So
yeah, I mean, honestly, probably tomorrow,
something crazy will happen. So what's happened? Let's review.
So when we left last week's, Liz Truss was in power. Hunt was in, and Liz Truss was in power, and then the next day she resigned.
Yep.
Which I think we did talk about a little bit, didn't we? We didn't really.
No.
Did you not talk about it at all?
We didn't talk about her resigning.
No. We talked about the fact she might resign.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it was there.
Hunt was pulling the strings with his mad, starry eyes,
Yeah, and so Hunt's got eventually it was obvious that Liz Truss basically, you can't be PM if you don't actually want to implement any of the policies that your government is.
If you don't believe in the policies,
so she had to go, which is fair enough.
Did you watch any of her speech? I didn't know. I have to say I
didn't know. But I mean, I think my wife said, actually she felt that at least she tried to do something different and believed in it. Has much more sympathy for her. I don't know. I'm always skeptical about all these polls that showed, awful ratings. I mean, did they really think about it? They're just, generally speaking, polls just tell politicians what they want to hear, don't they?
They're designed in order to get a particular outcome, in order to drive a certain policy or point of view. Yeah.
So Truss had to go because basically the banks didn't want her. I say banks, but the financial markets didn't want her. So she had to go.
This is really weird, isn't it, Tom? I just feel that this is really weird, just to insert this whole thing. I mean, I'm hearing this, all the time. It's like the markets say no to the new prime minister or the potential new prime minister. It's very strange, isn't it? It's like we're being governed by markets now.
I mean, you may as well give up with the idea of just take it. Just take a bit of a. I mean, one is pointed out in Unheard, wasn't it? If you're going to borrow so much from people, then of course they have a say in the end.
Right.
They have a say in the stability, in the same way that if you borrow money off a bank and get a mortgage, the bank has a say in substantial restructuring of the house. Because if you did something that was going to knock the house down,
good comparison.
The bank would say, well, actually, you can't take. You'll end up.
Okay.
They need to preserve the value that they have in the state. So
can I interpret back to you what you've just said, because I think that's helpful. So you're saying that it's like we've borrowed so much money from banks and other what else? Financial markets and things like that. We borrowed so much money from them that now they're basically in control of the government because if you say, and we'll get to this in a minute in the story, but if you say propose somebody as prime minister who they don't like, then certain things start to go in directions which are bad for the country.
Yep.
So how does that work then? So guilt yields and things like that.
Gilt years dropped.
I don't really understand this. I don't really
They
understand
increased effectively they increased the price that they put on borrowing.
Right.
Right.
So it's more expensive to borrow.
So it's more expensive to borrow, yeah.
Which is bad financially for the country.
Well, yeah, because we rely on borrowing. We have done for years to sustain the income, to the outgoings of the government.
It's shocking, isn't it? It's shocking.
So
it really
it's
is.
getting worse. It is shocking. And so what they can say is, no, we don't want to. We think it's too risky to lend to you at this rate, so we're going to up the rate that we lend to you at, and the government then has no choice.
Yeah.
That's no choice. You can't do that because they can't afford to borrow more expensively.
Okay.
The whole system of government finances is predicated upon a cheap supply of money.
Yep.
But a cheap supply of money drives inflation.
Yep.
Which actually increases the government's liabilities because they still need to service debt, and this debt changes. The interest rate changes on that debt when inflation goes up. So it's a catch-22. It's a disaster, and it's a disaster that has been caused by a series of imprudent chancellors.
Yeah, but the deeper issue here is that we have a culture of borrowing, isn't it? So we just finance our economy on debt, and then eventually catches up with us. And of course, the most extreme version of that was the, however many billions of pounds we borrowed in order to finance the COVID, furlough scheme and everything that.
We all, and it's quite convenient for Sunak, isn't it? Because he's scapegoated Liz Truss quite perfectly. It's her fault. It's her fault.
Well,
because it's his fault. He's the one who did it.
Yeah, he's the one who did it in the first place. And Matt Hancock with his NHS app, which cost billions of pounds.
Well, that was small. That was small fry, Jamie.
I know it's still billions of pounds.
Yeah, I know.
For a track and trace app that didn't even work. It's money down the drain. Thanks very much, Matt.
Thanks very much. So we got now Rishi Sunak, and he's producing a government of all.
We missed something out. We missed all the stuff about Boris Johnson.
Oh yeah, well, it was because it was a joke, wasn't it?
No, it was real. No, but this is what I'm talking about.
I know.
Boris
almost.
So let me say this part. So basically, Boris almost came back. He announced that he had 100 MPs, which is what you needed, but then he mysteriously pulled out. And there are two broadly speaking, two explanations for this. Well, there may be three. One is, which I think is the most benign explanation, he realised he couldn't lead a divided party and most MPs didn't want him. I don't buy that. I don't think that would stop him. Number two, he didn't actually have 100 MPs and he was just lying, which I could believe. Number three, the gilt market started to rise, and when it looked like he was going to become prime minister, and so essentially the markets rejected him.
You may as well give up on all these politicians, won't you? Just do everything by gilt markets.
You could have a team of programmers who just ask the market things. Should we cut spending, and then just see what the market does, and then just.
Well, you probably just do basically just to. You leak a document basically every few days, and if it makes the gilts go up, then you claim it wasn't you never did it. And if it makes the gilts go down, you do it. It's a great idea. So it's basically what the government are doing, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. So you carry on then. So now we've got.
We've got
no one else.
Again.
There was no one else except for Sunak. The only thing the markets would allow was Sunak. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So Sunak is in, who is of course the man responsible for the mess. Fundamentally, the man responsible for the mess that destroyed Liz Truss.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
okay, we did speak.
Responsible, isn't he? I mean, there were other people who were responsible as well.
He's the Chancellor of the Exec. He could.
But there were other people who were involved as well. You can't just say it was. You can't say.
But the buck stopped with him. I mean, he could have resigned, of course. If he wasn't
I would also want to apportion some blame to other people like Boris Johnson.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Like Chris Whitty and Patrick Vallance, like Matt Hancock, all of like Dominic Cummings, all of the people who are involved. I mean, I do agree with you, obviously.
But in the end, the more powerful you are, the more of the shoulder of the blame you have to think. And certainly from a financial perspective, he's to blame for allowing it, and for coming up with the horrendously expensive furlough and etc.
What I did like though was the eat out to help out, which I took advantage of a few times.
I really enjoyed it, but it did feel a bit you know, I had some very lovely cheap meals. It was great, but also I'd have probably had the meals anyway. So
Rishi special. Um,
um,
and they put us into a lockdown again afterwards, so it was totally useless because it was meant to be a psychological boost, wasn't it, to get everyone out?
Yeah.
But then it was
and it did work for September. It was joyful. Everyone was back to you, and then it was like Rule of Six, and then it was
please,
circuit breakers, and then it was
don't take me back to that.
Then it was. Do you remember regional sort of green, amber, reds, and then
we were in the worst tier throughout the whole thing.
Do you know what? That November lockdown worked so well that the area I was in started off in the highest tier and ended up coming out of the lockdown in the lowest tier. So, blimey. The point being that that Rishi is now Prime Minister. We get a very wooden acceptance speech. He looks a bit like a robot, doesn't he? It's like
he does have quite a robotic feel about him.
Yeah. Was it Tom Harris? He sounded like a sympathetic bank manager dealing with a distraught couple on the verge of losing their home. Yeah. The thing is, like, what's he going to do?
What's he going to do? Can you explain it in layman's terms?
Well, I don't really know what he's going to do. You know, he needs to. He's got a circle that he needs to square.
Yeah.
You know, he needs to somehow grow. So we spoke about it a bit last week, you know, and sort of that article from Sherelle Jacobs pointed out, you know, the austerity won't grow the economy, probably. Yeah. Although, I mean, I tend to agree with austerity because I agree with the government being smaller, which fundamentally austerity is, should be anyway. It doesn't actually tend to work out that way, though, does it? But in theory, you know, I agree with the aim of a government living within its means and therefore cutting government services until it's living within its means. That's reasonable. But that of course was the aim, but it never really happened. And the argument is that whilst bonds were really cheap, the government could have borrowed cheaply and used that to supercharge growth coming in the sort of mid 2015, 2016. But now that bonds are expensive, it can't do that anymore. So austerity, cutting the government size, doesn't even, it's the worst of all worlds. It's not Keynesian, which would say, you know, big public works will kickstart economies, and it's not Hayekian, which is saying, you know, liberalizing the supply side will grow economies. It's just stuck in a morass of expensive money, low taxation, but trying to increase taxation by making the taxation higher, probably getting lower returns, stifling growth, growing the state. And in general, there's I can't see a way out, and I think this is Tom.
What is the way out? What's going to happen? Is it just going to crash? It's just, what will happen? We always hear like, oh, there's going to be an economic crash, but what will actually happen? What does that mean? Does it mean just the banks will just shut down? That people will stop going to the banks and working there, and there just won't be? What will there not be? Will there not be money anymore? Will people be bartering? What will happen? What's like the worst?
I don't think anyone can know. I mean, who knows? Who knows? I mean, Tom Harris.
That's why I'm asking.
Tom Harris. The COVID pandemic will take many, many years to recover from economically, and it was Sunak who happened to be in charge of the economy at the time. Sunak, however long he remains in office, it was spent trying to figure out how to pay for his own largesse without, and I can't get to the bottom of the Google.
No, I can't see that either for some reason.
Without something.
Without something.
Here we are. There we go. Without, as he said in the speech outside his new home in Downing Street, allowing future generations to shoulder the burden of debt. So we're up a creek without a paddle.
Yes.
You know? The effluent has hit the windmill. You know, there's going to be no easy way out. And add on to this the prospect of continuing fuel poverty due to a sort of slightly ambiguous geopolitical move to continue a fight in Ukraine for as long as possible, and our refusal to deal with the single biggest European producer of oil as part of that. And it could be a perfect storm. We could indeed see, I think, disastrous things happen. But God is in charge. God doesn't really care for financial markets. I think he probably cares much more for our immortal souls. And so we have to trust that this is part of God's plan. It could well be. I mean, a good. Maybe this is what we need. This is about serving Mammon or serving God. Maybe Mammon has been allowed to rage unleashed upon the West for the last 50 years, and it's time actually that we did some thinking about that.
Yeah, well, I think this verse here, no one can serve two masters. That applies to societies as well as it does individuals, doesn't it? And we're clearly a society that worships Mammon and wealth. And the Lord is trying to get our attention through this, as individuals, but also as a society as well. It may take the complete destruction of our society and our civilization before we wake up and realize.
He's done that before. He destroyed Israel on numerous occasions in various ways of the society. He's done it.
Yes, and in many other ways as well,
and the floods and the Tower of Babel, hubris versus God, and God wins.
Yep. Yeah, indeed. So turn to Christ. That's what we should all do. Right, we should move on, Tom.
There's one other thing that's just worth mentioning, which is Rishi as our first Hindu prime minister.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, is he actually a Hindu though? I mean, I don't want to. Is he like I believe he's Hindu in the same way as Sadiq Khan is a Muslim? Or is
I don't know. I can't speak to his own faith. It's an interesting question, though. I don't. Obviously, I have great respect for people of all faiths and none. But I'd rather
everyone. So you respect everyone.
I do respect everyone, all faiths and none.
Exactly, you do respect everybody.
I respect everyone, regardless of their religious choices. But I think God blesses Christian leaders.
Right. Yep.
And I would prefer to see Christian leadership in the country.
Let's pray for Rishi for his conversion away from Hinduism to Christianity.
Don't get me wrong. Like I think it's about Boris Johnson is obviously not even vaguely a Christian. I think he's probably atheist or
Johnson is
Johnsonite, isn't he? He's basically a Johnsonite.
He's a fake Roman Catholic.
Well, he's not a Roman Catholic, though, is he? I mean, or at least
he pretends to be.
His life shows none of the sort of attempts to live a Roman Catholic life over the years. I mean, maybe in his time as Prime Minister, he's been converted. Who knows? I hope he has. That'd be lovely, wouldn't it? But we've had Cameron wasn't really a Christian. He described himself as a sort of
he said his faith was like when you're trying to tune the radio in the Peak District or in the Lake District or something like that, and it kind of I can't remember,
fades in and out. Yeah,
comes in and out. I think
which I mean, I don't know. We've had sort of atheistic prime ministers in the past in the 20th century. So I mean, I'd say the same with them as well. That we should aim for, as a Christian state, aim for Christian leadership.
I agree. I'd be interested to know what Sunak really believes. And if anyone can shed any light on this, I'd be most interested to hear. So good. All right, Tom, let's do it. Are you ready?
Ready.
The highlight, the musical highlight of any show. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. It is time for ye old question the Rev. And today we're actually answering a question that's been sent in via email.
We've been quite bad, haven't we, at doing email of the week recently? Anyway,
we've got an email this week as well.
We have as well, so we're going to do that.
And we've left plenty of time. Well, good. I say plenty; it depends on how long we talk for.
Yeah,
but anyway, dear Jamie, Daniel, and Thomas, Daniel's not here. Sorry about that. Thank you for all that you do on your podcast, which I enjoy and value every week. I have two question the revs for you, please. So I'll read these both out, okay, and then we can answer. I would like to ask you all what you find hardest about being a Christian. As I've got older, I have realized more about the need to take up one's cross and just how tough it can be to really lead a Christian life in the humility and patience that calls for. The other is my working life and busy family life make huge demands on my time. I try hard to carve out time for daily prayer, but often early morning meetings and late evening events get in the way of this. I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I love my job, which does enable me to make a difference in the world. But should I be taking steps to lead a different kind of life if this feels so wrong? Thank you very much.
Let me start at the end there, because that's a really good thing to say. And I don't think you're alone. In fact, I feel the same sometimes. It's really hard when you've got a family, when you've got a really busy job, you've got other pressures in life, and it is hard. It is hard to carve out time for daily prayer and in the morning and the evening. I don't always manage it. I should do, but I don't always manage it. So you're not alone. And really, my job should be one where I can find time to do it. But it's weird how much time goes away when you're running a few churches. And so it's a constant challenge for me to make sure that I keep that balance of making sure that I seek God's word every morning and every evening, and offer intercession and pray. And I haven't got a good solution, though I've got some solutions I'd like to try. And one of them is sort of if I could find a good prayer podcast that I could listen to whilst driving my son to nursery, which is often the thing that takes up time in the morning, because a toddler is really full on in the morning. So that would be like, I don't know whether anyone's got any good advice. I need 20 minutes sort of someone to pray and praise with as I drive. But it's not ideal, is it? It's not spending time as I should and as I try to in my church, praying there and making that space that's prayed in. So I think you're right. It's important, and I think sometimes it's about not making compromises. Sometimes it's about getting up half an hour earlier. I don't like doing that, but if it's important, then it should be the thing. I don't know, Jamie, have you got any wisdom?
Yeah, well, that's for others to say, isn't it? I mean, I always have something to say. I actually think that the hardest thing about being a Christian for me at the moment is actually related to in the second question. There are some times in the Christian life where we're called to do extremely difficult things, to forgive somebody who's hurt us, for example, or something like that. That can be very hard. But the biggest challenge for me at the moment is definitely just the everyday finding time for prayer, orientating my mind and my heart towards Christ, not allowing the demands and the busyness of life to take away my sense of God's presence, which can happen so easily. And I think there's a couple of things I say about it. I think there's like a practical question, but then there's also a spiritual question, which is, and I don't know, Alex, at all about your life or anything like that, but I think when you ask yourself the spiritual question, it can perhaps clarify the way you spend your time. So the spiritual question is, why do I do the things that I do that are stopping me from praying, reading scripture, and devoting myself to Christ? And I find that quite helpful, because then I start to think, well, what do I actually do? What am I spending my time doing? Well, I'm rushing from one thing to another, maybe answering lots of emails, maybe, watching TV, maybe reading interesting books, even maybe spending time with my family, all of these things. Now, I'm not saying any of these things are wrong, but what I'm saying is when you start to analyze them, you can prioritize them a little bit better. So you might think, well, perhaps I don't need to have that particular bit of leisure time, whether it be reading an interesting book or watching TV, or because actually what I want to do is I want to orientate my desire towards Christ. So I think if you start to think about what's actually going on in your heart, and why is it that you find it so difficult to find that space for prayer, I think that's something I'm certainly asking myself, and I do find it helpful, because then you can actually say to yourself, well, all right, I'm not going to do X, I'm going to sacrifice it. And that is a part of the Christian life, to sacrifice for Christ, even if it's something silly, like, I'm sacrificing half an hour of TV, or I'm sacrificing a book that I'd like to read so that I can pray. So that would be my suggestion, to try and think about it like that. Yeah. But it's a brilliant question. And the other thing, just briefly, the other thing I would say is when he says, should I be taking steps to lead a different kind of life? Generally speaking, I think the way we should think about things is, God has called us to a particular state in this world, whether it be family life, whether it be single life, whether it be a busy job, whether it be not. We're in that state. the task primarily is to listen and try and hear what God wants to say to you in that state, how he wants you to be a holy husband or father, wife, person in the workplace. Find the voice of God in that situation and live it out. But then there are some times when God's calling us into a new thing as well, and we should be open to that. And sometimes that happens as a result of a transition in life, going from no children to children, or children to children leaving, or whatever it might be, or losing a job, or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's clearer that the Lord wants to move us into a different state. So be holy where you are. And if there is something new, and it really seems the Lord is leading in that direction, then be open to it.
It's a good question.
Yeah,
certainly living out a distinctive Christian life is a hard challenge, and prayer has to be part of that. As does reading the Bible, as does study and time, and as does having a holy life that models all these things. Sorry,
Tom, just one more point, just a more practical point. I find to try and do less is better if you're actually going to do less, so a practical thing. If you're trying to do too much, it can be discouraging. Try and do less, try and do something, even if it's a small thing. And then that's practically helpful as well, because, it's easier to find time to do small thing. But, if you do a small thing in a good way, in a spiritual way, then that can be more beneficial for you spiritually than spending, hour, 2 hours studying, the book of Isaiah in Hebrew, if it's really stressed. Not that I do that, because I don't read Hebrew apart from anything else. So it's good. Anything else, Tom, or should we?
No.
Okay, good. Well, thanks, Alex, and we're thinking of you, and we hope it goes well, whatever you do. Right, email of the week. So this is from Anthony. So this is a bit of a story. And so
it's about 2,000 words of story, isn't it? It's good.
Is it 2,000? Is it 2,000 words? Gosh, it's too long. Oh, anyway, it's very interesting. It's about his time in Asda. So he talks about he's a 35-year-old man with a young wife and 2 children, and they go to the local C of E school. And this is his story about working in Asda during the COVID time. I started my Asda career in college, as many do, as an evening job, just to tie me over until I tried to become a rock star. 17 years later, I was in Asda and still not a rock star. So that didn't quite work out. During that time, the company and thus store changed dramatically from a genuinely nice place to work with 700 plus colleagues to one that still maintained it was family orientated, but was much colder and with much less people, about half as many. He worked in a bakery, became a baker himself. It was all customer orientated, except there was an American style complaints system whereby you always had to be investigated whenever anyone made a complaint. The system was abused, and so on and so forth. He became a supervisor and a manager of the bakery, pizzeria, rotisserie, and fish counter, which was very enjoyable. Even though I
do like the Asda pizzeria.
I do as well. Yeah. I do.
I'm nowhere near an Asda at the moment.
We're near a big one, and they do have those nice pizzas. They're massive.
Make your own, huge pizzas. Get them to put your favorite toppings on it, and then cover it in oil, and then you chuck it in the oven. Anyway,
that's nice. Yeah, that's making me feel hungry. That's 45 minutes before dinner. Budget started to be brutal, and they started to put people 5th or 6th, as he says. His daughter was born shortly after. He had found the Lord a tremendous help through his panic at becoming a father, and the fact that, he writes, I'd convinced myself my wife would die in childbirth, even though there were no complications at all. Having a child, as you know, changes your perspective on everything in the world and your life. And again, the only consistency was and is God. As a manager, your work life changes. I wanted to be a manager for one thing only, to provide for my family. But the ethos in a supermarket is that when you're a manager, that shop is your home and the colleagues are your weird, poorly behaved, grumpy family. Again, I must stress that you are never told this, but you're made to feel it. Your departments are your departments, but you also have to help with everything else. I had known the store and the lot of the people for 12 plus years now, so it was really easy to flex some family time here and there. But the job is hard, and you have to really love retail to get by and conform. You must conform. So for a year or two, I pushed eagerly at the results we had to aim for week to week, as it was a new challenge. Once you're in this setting, it's hard to see it from the outside for what it is. You soon realize you are flogging products people don't really need, and whatever sparkling ideas you had or to try new things are very unlikely to be agreed upon and fall at the wayside. I don't mind being flogged pizza, to be honest with you. And products from a bakery. I mean, not necessarily that bad for you.
I thought you avoided carbs.
No, I said it's not very good for you, but I don't mind it. I don't sort of think of it as an unethical thing to be like really in your face about croissants or something. Anyway, should we carry on?
Hawking croissants in Asda. Right,
absolutely. So he then talks about the way that there was a controversy because somebody wore a crucifix, and as a double standard because Muslim people were allowed to wear a hijab, and they've backed away from that. Then he says, the store hired our first trans colleague, and during a meeting about sales, it is brought up about which toilet he will use. Genetically, he is definitely a he, so it's assumed the one with the urinal. He would rather use the ladies. The ladies aren't happy about that, and it goes to stalemate shortly after he leaves. So what did this person do when he needed the loo? Maybe that's when he left. I don't know. Maybe he just decided. I'm handed a rainbow lanyard to wear to support Pride Month. I declined quite politely, but also bluntly. And from there, I think my career halted. I was marked as a non-conformist. He then he went through a spate of hiring for his departments, and
had a son. Very good. Yeah.
Had a son.
Second
That was
child.
good. Yeah. So after the birth of my son, 3 months later, COVID became a thing. I was and still am one of those that question the validity and relevance of this virus and the bizarre procedures around it from day one, even before listening to your podcast that resonated so strongly with me that I have loved ever since. Yay. Work didn't stop. One day, we were joking about Oriental viruses. A few people wore masks voluntarily. The next, the panic buying started. I in no way considered myself or others heroes just because we became branded key workers or continued to go to work, as I wasn't scared. I had faith in protection provided by the Lord because the whole thing seemed so contrived. I would say that the store, which is very large, may I add, became this sort of theatre of people acting out the worst behaviours in human greed. Like they didn't really believe in what they were doing, but it was expected of them. We had to barricade aisles so that we could fill shelves with toilet roll.
Unbelievable, yeah. Barricade an aisle. Anyway,
yeah. Then let customers in like cattle and remind them constantly to pick 2 packs, then leave the aisle. The queue spread through the length of the shop. It didn't happen in any other aisle, but because the media got hold of toilet roll bulk buyers, it became super trendy to line up to get your bog roll. That's quite strange, isn't it, Tom? I mean,
I must say that I'm a hoarder or something, but I always make sure I've got like a few months worth in stock.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It doesn't take up that much space. Yeah,
but yeah, absolutely, and you're good for you. And I fully support you in your choice. It's interesting, isn't it, that people saw that on the news and then they thought, I must go out and buy
toilet roll,
even though you had to join these enormous queues. Anyway, trolleys had to be monitored for multiple purchases of things, and shoplifting went through the roof and out the fire exit. Then masks, 2 meters, and lockdowns happened. Masks were voluntary initially, but Asda, in an attempt to be there for the people, just said that colleagues were expected to wear them. Like the government, there was no law, no change in contract, but this unofficial official rule. It wasn't popular. People who wanted to wear them were already wearing them. Those of us that didn't were alienated. As managers, we were expected to lead the way, but I could only keep on mine for a minute or two. And the store manager, who I'd always got on with, suddenly became very aggressive about the masks, as though we already had no choices in our own life. It was a mixed bag across the store. After lockdowns were put into effect the first time, the store was quiet but not empty for about 3 days and then resumed as normal, and for the year and a half remained as that. The weird loophole where you had to absolutely stay at home, no question, unless you wanted to go and queue outside the store for an hour, then enter the store for as long as you wanted, then take as long as you wanted going home, was fully abused. We controlled store numbers entering the store, but for the life of me, I cannot work out what difference 200 people in store over 220 people made, as it went up and down daily. It was scientific, though, apparently, a thesis developed by top Asda scientists. Now, I would say that Asda is the only shop that I've actually been imprisoned in, because in all the other supermarkets I went to during the lockdown, it was only Asda that controlled people going out as well as coming in. So I was literally in a queue waiting to leave. And I was thinking to myself, well, it's because in this particular Asda I was in, it was, a narrow door. But I was thinking, hang on a second, you can't imprison me in this Asda. I will leave you. I didn't, because I didn't want to cause a scene. But, as if they can stop you leaving, because you might infect someone as you're walking out the door. Surely that's illegal. You can't do that, Asda. Anyway, so you didn't ever have that?
I've never been imprisoned in a supermarket, no.
Yeah, well, it's unpleasant, I can tell you.
I'm sure.
I tried to lift spirits in store by playing one-touch passing football, stood 2 meters apart outside the back of the shop on our lunch break, which, as you can imply, was quite popular as this was the only time people now played together. This was duly reported several times to that ethic hotline I previously.
Oh, honestly, I mean, that is just snooping, isn't it? That is telltaling.
I know somebody who really hates football.
Somebody really, but they could just not play it. You know, they don't have to.
Yeah, but that's dangerous, Tom. It's dangerous. There could have been COVID on that football. I was told to cease and desist after several weeks of arguing the validity of the complaints. I just envisage one of those, really cheap, inflatable footballs you get in a Asda. I had sweets confiscated by the people manager as I offered them to one of my colleagues.
Now that is, I mean, you're not a child, are you? I'm pretty certain that they can't just confiscate your sweets.
They can't just take your food away, can they? I mean, that's not fair,
ridiculous.
Is it?
It's not even illegal, was it? You could.
If it was bread, would you have had your bread confiscated? If you had a loaf of bread, would you have planned on?
If you'd offered someone a sandwich, would they have taken away your sandwiches?
Yeah. Anyway, he says he's pretty sure that's a breach of human rights, not COVID safety, but it happened anyway. All this,
it's basically just theft, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sweets. I hope they weren't expensive. Some sweets are quite expensive.
I bet they ate it. I bet they sat up in their human resources office and ate their sweets,
chuckling away, eating really expensive Lindt chocolates. All this and more was rallied against, not just by me, but by some others too. But I feel we were in the minority, which to this day surprises me. We were apparently logical humans before all that. Ironically, the COVID years in Asda were still some of the most teamwork orientated for many years in that place. People did pull together to get the work done, and we broke ridiculous rules about distancing and mask wearing constantly because it kept many of us sane. I was covering the whole of the fresh food area of the shop as that manager was off work due to fear of COVID. And yet, despite the workload, it was a fun challenge with everyone pulling together under a banner of those who were still there being one, despite the politics. We had been told to continue to go to work, but also to stay away from each other. It was like no one knew what they were doing. 2 years after COVID had hit, I was made redundant during a company-wide restructure after I applied to remain in the store in the role I was already covering, which I thought I had earned. 17 years of service ended because essentially I didn't want it enough. Basically, as I put my family first and didn't conform due to my faith, I was deemed unsuccessful in my application. I was offered other roles in other stores, but I took this as a sign to move on. So I did. And thanks to our gracious Lord, I'm in a job I actually enjoy. And it has given me time to deepen my faith and discover and rediscover resources such as this podcast and church, which has truly helped my understanding. So when he says this podcast and church, he means his church. He doesn't mean that he considers the podcast a church, or at least I hope he doesn't. Praise the Lord in all his grace and love. Kind regards and bless you and all that you do, Anthony. Good email.
Thank you. Yeah, it's lovely.
I think my favourite part was when he got banned from playing football outside the back.
Really?
Of the street, and then his sweets got confiscated.
Yeah, sweets got confiscated. That's really. I hope it didn't happen on the same day. That would be like being
it would be terrible.
It?
worst day ever.
Yeah. People just behaving like that, ridiculous. Good.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll never look at an Asda store in the same way again.
I know. I won't into. There's pizzas will be like dust and ashes in my mouth.
I love those pizzas though.
I started making my own, Jamie.
Have you? Yeah. Well, we make pizzas here sometimes. It's very nice, isn't it?
Very nice. Yeah. Well, there's no Asda near us to go and get them to make us pizza. So,
yeah.
Alas. Anyway, well, thank you, Anthony, and I hope your journey with God continues. I'm glad you're in a job that you like.
Yeah.
I'm glad there were other people in supermarkets because they were always very hostile places for me because I hated it, seeing all those masked people trudging around, queuing, light systems at Tesco's, one-way systems in the store. If you forgot something, what were you supposed to do? I didn't know. I just ignored the one-way system and got glared at. But
one-way system on the floor. I literally couldn't believe what I was looking at. I was thinking, are they serious? They want us to walk around in the same direction, like lemmings around this supermarket. What if I can never find what I want in a supermarket.
No,
in one direction. I'd be in there for hours.
Yeah, just had to keep doing loops of the store. That's get your exercise in as well as your daily shopping, I guess.
Could have jogged around. That was probably forbidden as well because you'd be breathing too heavily or something. Tom, a couple of notices to end with. Now, the merchandise is coming very soon. And I've got a t-shirt and the t-shirts are awesome. They're really, really good. I'm yet to see, I've got a hat as well. The hat's great. I'm yet to see a mug, but I think the mugs are going to be good.
I'm looking at one.
It's happening. It's coming. It's under construction. The website, it just takes a little bit of time to sort it out. It's a bit complicated, but we'll have that soon, hopefully for next week. Also, Of course, Peter Hitchens next week, big 100th episode anniversary thingy. And we have a live event, which is coming up next year. Now, we have got a very, very exciting guest booked, but we're not going to say who it is yet. We'll announce it when we put the tickets out. Just to sate your, not sate, just to what's the word I'm looking for? Cultivate your appetite for this event. But it's going to be a really good live event. It is going to be in London. Sorry to people who are more northerly, but the fact is that the majority of people who listen to this podcast live in London, and we have to make sure that people will attend the event. So, and also London's convenient for us, to be honest. So it's going to be in London. Big guest. It's going to happen. It's going to be amazing. And so get ready for a big event in the new year. And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so. Go to our website, irreverendpod.com. It really helps in lots of ways, apart from anything else, on all the outlay that we have to do with running the podcast and, extra stuff like the stuff I've just mentioned. You can become a regular supporter on Patreon, patreon.com/irreverend, or just go press the big red button and you can become a regular supporter for about £1, well, exactly £1.50 a month plus VAT, or more if you'd like to. And you get the episodes when we finish making them. So you don't have to wait. And also you can just buy us a coffee, virtual coffee online. If you want to make more one-off donation, that'd be really appreciated. Thank you very much. Tom, shall we say a prayer to finish off?
Of course, yeah. So, do you want me to pray?
Yeah, you go.
Go on then. Heavenly Father, give you thanks for this time. Thanks for our listeners. We pray for Anthony, for his new job. We give thanks that he's in a job that is suitable for him, that is satisfied in. Pray for our other reverend questioners for their spiritual life, that they may find time to grow towards you, Lord. Finally, we pray for wisdom for our government, for your spirit to be upon them, to turn from iniquity and to do the right thing. Amen.
Amen. Good.
And blessings, everyone.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for listening, as always. Really appreciate it. And Tom, thank you for your insight, as always. And looking forward. So next week, Tom, looking forward to
good.
Don't miss it.
See you soon.
Okay.
No, I won't.
Bye.
Bye.